Okay, Assalamualaikum and good morning. Can you hear me?
Morning, Doctor.
Hi, morning. Okay, right. How many of you? 40. Okay, fine. Right. Okay, so before we begin our class today, right, let me just confirm again with you guys. This is regarding your your test, okay? Right. So have you got the timetable, the date? I mean, for the test from your department? Did anyone mention about the tests? Other lecturers, perhaps? Anybody? No. Still haven't got the date for your test. Because I have not been informed yet by your department. 1st of December. So confirm, okay? Right? 1st of December. 1st of December, and for our subject, is on the 1st of December, is it? All right, okay. So 1st of December, what time? Is it the same as the one in the timetable? 11 a.m., 1.5 hours. Yeah, yeah, 2 hours, 1.5. Or it's just going to be 1.5 hours. Okay. Right, so 1st of December, let me just write it down here first. 1st December, 1. So meaning it's next week, right? It's next week. Okay, so basically, okay, for your test questions. Okay, I've already prepared your test questions, and basically it is divided into two parts. Okay, the first part will be a set of objective questions. Consisting of 10 questions. Okay, right? 10 questions for part A, right? And there will be hold on, what is this? Oh, okay. Okay, right. Okay, so your test questions will be divided into two parts. Okay, part one, okay, consisting of 10 questions, and part two consists of one question. 10 for part one, okay, it's going to be an objective question, and for part two, it will be a structural question. Okay, it's more like an essay, but it's a short essay, right? Okay, for part two. Okay, right. Adjustments have to be made, right? Due to the percentage required for your test. So the test will hold 20%, okay, of the overall mark, which means I need to adjust the percentage for assignment one, okay. So assignment one is going to be a 30% assignment, okay, right? Rather than 10%, okay, originally, okay, but I have to change it to 30%, okay, and 20% for your for your test, okay. So altogether it's going to be 50% from me, right? Okay. And then another 50% of your assignment will come from Dr. Shamsul, right? And the other another 50% will come from your final exam, right? Okay. So 10. Oh no, sorry. I don't have to adjust anything, sorry, because we discussed it already. 10% still comes from your assignment one, sorry. 10% from assignment one. 20% comes from your test. Okay, so that's 30% from me. Okay, for your assignment, and another 20% assignment will come from Dr. Shamsul, right? And then another 50% will come from your final exam. Okay, so for this test, it's going to be a 20% test. What's going to come out? Well, basically everything that we've gone through, okay, in our classes. Yeah, so basically that's it. Okay, the focus of the question will be to see whether you you truly understand what is facilities management, the concept of FM, right? What else? You have to read a bit about support services, right? What else? You need to understand the job scope, okay, of FM. Yeah, basically, right? Basically, it's basic the fundamentals, okay, the fundamentals of facilities management, the concept, right? A bit about support services, job scopes, and things like that. Okay, right? It's not difficult really, right? It's very simple. Okay? If you follow through my my lecture, right, then it shouldn't be a problem. Okay. Would the notes help you? Would my slides, the notes help you? A bit. Okay, it would help you a bit, but basically, the questions will revolve around what I have been discussing in class. Okay, right. So perhaps you would like to listen back to the recordings of our class, you know, because it's not necessary that I took points from my slides, yeah, to be included in the test questions. Yeah? Sometimes it comes from the test questions. Sometimes comes from something that we discussed, right, or something that I elaborated in class. Okay, right. So if you have been following the class, then it should be okay, right? Because the notes themselves would not really do much. Okay, right? If you just were to rely on the notes, it's not really going to do much for you. Okay, right? The notes is just a guideline. It's just like you know, is where I just put in points, right? Okay, but the essence of what I teach usually comes from what we discuss in class, or what I elaborate and things like that. Okay, right. So don't worry. Okay, it's very simple, right? Just the fundamentals of FM. Okay? It shouldn't cause you too much problems. Okay. Right. Okay. So let us begin then with our lecture for today. Right. So we will continue. Have I shared the screen? Yes, I have. Yes, I have. Right. Okay. So let's begin then. Oh, okay. Hold on. Someone's joining us. Okay. So previously we stopped up till this. Okay. We were discussing the generic FM rules. Okay, so we've covered to meet end user requirements and efficiently reduce facility related costs. And today we're going to start off with maintaining business continuity. Okay, right? Maintaining business continuity, right? Usually every big business, okay, big companies, usually they would have what we call as BCP, right? Business continuity plan, right? Business continuity plan. Have we demonstrated this? Okay. Right. So big companies, big organizations would have their own business continuity plan, and the role of a facilities manager here is to contribute, okay, is to be part of the development of the business continuity plan, right? The purpose of a business continuity plan is actually to make sure that the company can survive if anything happens. The business can continue. The business would not be um, too much impacted by any form of risk, right? Okay, for example, natural disasters or economic downturn or political instability, right? Or like what we're having now, for example, right? The COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so as we know, right, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, there have been many businesses that are shutting down, or the businesses are not able to operate as usual. Okay, so this is where the business continuity plan, right, would play a vital role, okay, a very important role to make sure that the organization is able, right, to survive, to go through, okay, and in the end, continue to operate the business as usual. Okay. If you still remember back in the, I think it was 2014, if I'm not mistaken, it was 2014. Was it? Was it earlier than that? During the earthquake, which happened in Japan, right? Earthquake, and they suffered an earthquake and tsunami at that time. It was very bad. But then, just a year later, right, all the big companies in Japan, right, were able to be operational as usual. Just a year later, right? Okay. So how were they able to do that? It's because they have a BCP, right? They have a business continuity plan, right? Okay. So without BCP, I haven't recorded yet. Oh, thank you, Amy. I forgot. Thank you, thank you. Hold on. Start recording. Start. Okay, right. Okay, thank you, Amy. Okay, I forgot. Okay, right. Okay, so I just recap a bit. Okay, right. So BCP, right, with business continuity plan is required, okay, by usually big companies they would have their own BCPs, right? Okay. And the function of FM here is to contribute to the development of the BCP in the context of making sure that how do we plan, how do we strategize our facilities so that, right, if something happens to the company, right, due to whatever natural disaster or, like I said, economic downturn or political instability or a pandemic like what we are having right now, the facilities will still be able to continue supporting the core business so that the core business will be able to run as usual. Okay, right? So that is the purpose of a BCP, right? Without a BCP, a company will always be in the risk, right? The risk, of shutting down if something bad happens, if something big happens, right? And the development of a BCP, okay, right, would involve a few steps, okay, right? If you were to Google it, okay, how to develop a BCP, there will be many examples. Okay, the one that I've shown you here in the slide, okay, is one of the most common ones. Okay, one of the most common steps, okay, of developing a BCP. So we firstly initiate the business continuity planning process. Okay, and the assessment of risk. Okay, that would be the most important part. Okay, the assessment of risk. Okay, we must be able to identify what are the risks. How would the risk impair the business operations, right? And how do we basically rank the criticality of the risk? Okay, so that would be the first step in developing a BCP. And secondly, we need to conduct a business impact analysis, right? Basically, what we would do here is, if let's say the risk were to realize, okay, right, then how big of an impact would it be onto the business? Okay, right? So that is what we call as a business impact analysis. How big the impact would be, and what aspect of the business that would be most impacted by, right, that particular risk. Okay. And the third process is basically we will perform the some form of analysis of critical processes, okay, related to identified key business impacts. Okay, this is actually part of the BIA, business impact analysis. Okay, and the next one is to create an initial business continuity plan. Okay, it's a draft, basically it's a final draft, okay, of the business continuity plan, right? And it has to be, the next step is we have to test it, right? Revise it, okay, based on reviews that have been conducted within the organization, right? Okay, and also the management system, right? When you have you have a BCP, then you need to have a system, right, to manage the BCP, right? So when the threat realize, right, then basically we know what to do, right? And there is a system for us to monitor, right, the progress of the execution of the business continuity plan, right? So yeah, that is very important. Okay, the BCP is very important. Many companies tend to overlook the importance of BCP, right? But usually, very big companies, banks particularly, right? They would have their own BCPs. Not so much for the small firms, right? Okay. They may, I don't think so. They have BCPs, right? But the big ones, they will have. Okay? They will have a BCP in place, right? So the role of FM again, right, is to be involved in the development of the BCP, and the scope of FM will be on, well, basically the facilities. How can the facilities continue to support the core business, right? If something were to happen, right? Natural disasters, whatever. Okay. Okay, so that will be maintaining the business continuity. The third role of a facilities manager, right, generally. Okay, and the next one would be to ensure legal and regulatory compliance. Okay, this is uh, something common. Okay, right. The FM needs to understand any related legal and regulatory aspects to the operations of the business facilities. Right? We have so many requirements, so many policies by the government, by the client organization, right? We have uh, regulations from the Ministry of Health, for example, right? From from OSHA, right? From EIA, right? From the fire department, for example, right? Okay, there are regulations that we need to follow, and also the policies, in-house policies, right, by the client organization, right? For example, okay, let's take one example, one real life example. Okay, let's take De Palma. De Palma Hotel. Okay, if you've heard of De Palma Hotel, right? Okay, there are two De Palma hotels here in Malaysia. One is in Shah Alam, and the other one is in Ampang. Okay, it's actually quite big. Okay, I think it's a 3 or 4 star hotel. Right? And De Palma Hotel is a Sharia compliant hotel, right? Meaning it practices the Islamic law. Okay. So the FM company, which deals with the maintenance, the FM, basically, but I think the FM company there mostly is involved in the maintenance aspect of the hotel. So the FM company that runs the maintenance activities for the Palma Hotel will need to adhere to the requirements of the Sharia, okay, as dictated by the Palma Hotel. Okay? For example, for cleaning, for example, right? So the FM company would have to make sure that whatever substance they use, any chemicals that they use for cleaning, okay, is categorized as halal, right? That's number one. And the workers, for example, if say they involve female workers, then the workers will need to cover up, okay, the aura, right? Meaning they have to wear hijabs and all, right? Tudung, and they have to wear tudungs and all, right? And what else? Yeah, you cannot have, for example, a female cleaner cleaning up the, for example, the men's toilet, right? Yeah, things like that. Okay, so these are requirements from the Palma Hotel because they practice the Sharia, okay, in the operations of the hotel. So the FM company would need to adhere to that, right? We need to understand and adhere to the policy of the organization, apart from following whatever regulations set by the government, right? Okay, so ensuring legal and regulatory compliance is part of the responsibility of the facilities manager. Okay, and the last general role of a facilities manager is to support corporate social responsibility, right? CSR, as we know it. Okay, now many companies now they have their own CSR. Okay, CSR, corporate social responsibility. This is basically about the company giving back. Okay, the company giving back to the society, right? Making sure that whatever business activities run by the company does not give a negative impact towards the environment, right? uh, Making sure that the way they run their business, okay, would not jeopardize the quality of life of their workers, right? CSR is basically like that. Okay, the most shallow interpretation of CSR is when companies give donations, right? Okay, you've seen companies giving donations, right? With the large checks, especially during Hari Raya or things like that. Okay, right? Giving donations, handing out hampers and gifts, for the poor, right? Yeah, that is a form of CSR, but a very shallow, okay, a very shallow form of CSR, okay, a very shallow interpretation of CSR. CSR needs to be much more dynamic. Okay, it has to be continuous, right? It's not just about giving out money, right? It should be part of the way the company conduct their business. Okay, it has to support sustainability, right? Yeah, things like that. Okay, right. So basically, CSR is where the company gives back, okay, to the society, to the people, to the environment, right? Not just a one-shot effort, okay, like for example, giving a donation, right? It should be embedded, okay, into the way they conduct their business, right? I'm not sure whether I've given this example to you or was it in another class. I'm not sure, but okay, whatever it is, let me just explain to you. For example, okay, Hewlett Packard. Okay, I think it was Hewlett Packard. Hewlett Packard. Okay, the HQ of Hewlett Packard. Okay, um, basically had some form of a plan. Okay, to how to improve productivity of the workers. Okay, so to improve the productivity of the workers, right, we need for the workers to be happy, right? They need to be happy, and for the workers to be happy, they need to be healthy, right? Okay. So what the FM unit for Hewlett Packard did was, uh, they make sure that they making sure that the employees were happy and healthy. So the FM unit, okay, appointed a caterer, okay, which specializes in uh, the provision of healthy food, right? Okay, not just healthy food, right, but it has to be delicious as well, and sold at a very cheap price. Okay, so the FM unit appointed, okay, a caterer which specializes in the provision of healthy food, and of course the FM would also provide a place, right, a cafe, right, which is equivalent to a five-star restaurant or something like that. Okay, so the restaurant is very luxurious. It looks very luxurious, very comfortable. It looks great. The food, basically the foods are great, right? You can find, whatever it is you want to find, lamb chops, steaks, organic food, whatever, right? Okay, and they are basically prepared in a healthy way, right? So this is actually the action taken by the FM unit, okay, to improve the health of the workers, okay, at Hewlett Packard, right? And by doing so, the workers will be healthier, and of course, you know, a healthy body leads to a much more focused mind. They become happier. And the FM unit collaborated with the operations management unit. Um, so the workers, right, instead of, for example, finishing their working hours at 5, for example, they will be permitted to go to the gym, right, which is provided by the FM unit, okay, at 4, and they are required to exercise at the gym from 4 to 5. So healthy food plus exercise will produce happy, healthy, and more productive workers. So that is CSR. You see, the company wants to make profit, but at the same time, right, they want to make sure that the workers, the employees, are happy, healthy, and productive, right? So that is what CSR is all about. So they embed, okay, CSR into the operations of their business. Okay, so it's not just simply as, you know, giving donations and things like that, right? CSR is bigger than that. It's deeper, okay, than just, you know, throwing out donations and, you know, that's it. And making things even worse, it's just a one effort, a one shot venture, right? Okay, donate and that's it, done. Okay, no follow ups. Okay? So that's not the way. Okay, so FM needs to support CSR, right? It needs to support CSR. Okay, right. So that would conclude the 5 generic roles of a facilities manager within, okay, the client organization, right? Okay, so now I have 3 videos to show you, right? 3 videos, 3 progressive videos to show you, right? The first video would show you, would basically demonstrate the nature, okay, of facilities management, right? That would be for video number 1. Video number 2 will basically explain or show you or demonstrate to you the need for FM to be at the strategic level, right, of the organization. And video number 3 will explain to you the importance of strategizing space, right? Okay, space management is one of the most important aspects of facilities management. And video number 3 will basically demonstrate that, you know, how can we actually strategize our space so that it could help you know, improving the performance of the organization's core business. Okay, so hold on. Let me just firstly change to my, where's my my speakers? Hold on. Okay, hold on. Okay, so this is video number 1.
You know, a lot of people ask me.
Can you hear it?
Well, some people ask me. 2 people asked me once.
Can you hear it?
What is facilities management again? Let me clarify this. Facilities management is a very specialized function that is evolving in corporate America, which takes care of the management of facilities for said corporations. Is that a lot clearer? Let me try it one more time. Facilities management has a very specific job description. It's just that nobody knows what it is. You see, an FMer, as I like to put it, has to be very familiar with management and facilities, as well as architecture, design, marketing, and also be an electrician, an engineer, a fortune teller, a gambler, and a magician. Besides that, the job is easy. The trick is coordination. The team, dealers, designers, and facility managers. It all starts with strategic planning. Once you've started, it's not only what you do, it's how you do it. Style. Once the project gets started, things get a little more complex. Some people think this can be done with one hand behind your back. Some people think a really talented FMer could keep this project going and even look away. Yes, they do. Keeping a watchful eye out for the unexpected. Just as I thought, the old unexpected again. You see, there comes a point in every facilities manager's life where it all has to be put together. You can't fake it. That's right. The left-hand return goes in the right office. The right-hand return goes in the left office. Very good. That goes there, around there. Check the third floor. Not ready yet. Over there. Everything under control. A brilliant idea. Nah. The trick is coordination. Without it, it's a lot like juggling on a motorcycle. Is that getting any clearer? Well, now that everybody's moved in, things should slow down. Just kick back and oversee the facility. There may be a few minor details to work on, but as long as you're ready for anything, we out already? Did I say anything? I meant everything. Reconfiguring. Added security. Lighting. Plunging. Bribes. Forecasting. Red tape. Baby boomers. And then it starts all over again. Not that facilities management is a difficult job. It's just that you have to wear a lot of hats. It's knowing everything about everything, being everywhere, every minute of every day, every time. Whether the job is big or small, the trick's coordination. Besides that, the job is easy.
Okay, right. So that's the first video. Okay, so basically, like I said, this video explain or demonstrate rather, okay, the nature of facilities management. What is FM? What is it like? What is it like to become to be a facilities manager? Okay, so as you can see, right, you know, as a facilities manager, you have to deal with everything, right? Even when the toilet is out of toilet papers, right? That is the responsibility of the facilities manager or the facilities management unit. Okay, right? So it's everything, and the juggling part is actually the metaphor, right? It's a metaphor showing that as a facilities manager, right, you have to deal with all of these different things every single day, right? And it doesn't stop, right? It doesn't stop. It's forever. Right? It is forever. Okay. And he did mention that it's not difficult, right? It's not a difficult job. Okay. But you have to wear a lot of hats, right? So you are, not just the manager of the facilities, right? You are also the engineer. You are also the architect. You are, also the maintenance workers. You are the safety officer. You are everything, right? You are everything, and the company, your client organization, really depends on you. Okay. And he did also mention that the trick is coordination, right? If you still remember, right, when we discussed the 4 definitions of FM, right? Okay, from IFMA, from IWFM, and from CFM, and we extracted out the keywords, right? One of the keywords there was coordination, right? We need to coordinate, right? So that's the key, right? You need to coordinate all of these different works that you have to face every single day, right? Okay, it's a routine, right, and it's never going to stop, right? So yeah, that is the life of a facilities manager, right? A facilities manager is not the kind of manager that sits in the office, with your tie and your coat, sitting, relaxing in the office and just monitoring and overseeing the facilities, right? Okay. That is not a facilities manager. Okay. And FM is not that kind of manager, right? If you dream to be that kind of manager, then FM is not for you. Okay. A facilities manager would be occupied um, from 9 to 5, not from 9 to 5, it's actually 24 hours a day, right? Okay, they will be occupied throughout, the life cycle of the business. They are very mobile, right? They usually walk around, okay? When they walk around with a walkie-talkie in hand, usually they will have a walkie-talkie in hand, right? Yeah, they are actually bosses. Okay, a facilities manager is actually a boss, right? It's a kind of boss, one of the leaders, or one of the top management, right, in the organization. But unlike a human resource manager or an operations manager, right, where they just sit down in the office and give instructions to do this and that, sit for a meeting, and all the boss-like activities. A facilities manager, right, is a very active, right, kind of manager, right? They move around a lot, okay, right? So yeah, it's a busy life, okay, being a facilities manager, and that's what video number 1 was trying to demonstrate. Okay, right. So let's move on then to video number 2. Okay.
Many people approach me in my daily life and ask, do many people really approach you? And then they ask, haven't I seen you before? Aren't you a famous
facilities manager, the FMer who juggles metaphorically? And I have to say, yes, I juggle metaphorically. But today, there's so much more to FMing than... Are we out again already? Facilities management is evolving, revolutionizing. And what does it take for today's FMer to be on the cutting edge? Razor sharp. Ping. Today, the FMer in corporate America on corporate planet Earth must deal with change. Sudden. Fast. Dangerous. Unpredictable. I'd like to use razor-sharp implements as a metaphor. I love metaphors because I find they pop into my head like, well, I can't think of one right now, but for instance, this axe. It's the perfect metaphor because it has two heads, representing all the factors that FMers must juggle in the workplace. You have work processes, technology, people, and the facility. You can't forget the facility. I want to make sure that it doesn't fly off again. Quality management. Yes, we FMers are at a crossroads. Are we merely asset managers? Or must we become strategic players, helping lead the way towards corporate change? Possible downsizing. And now, I place the metaphor on my foot, because it's time to kick axe. Managing change. Strategically. A grasp on everything. The work process. The technology. The people. The facility. The strategic FMer. Helping achieve corporate goals. Possibly a matter of survival. Stopping is a problem. And there really is no choice. Today's FMer must help lead the way towards corporate goals. There are hundreds of flashy ways to end this. This is the one that I know. The question is, how do we New Age FMers make ourselves heard? That's a good question. It's an excellent question. Yes, it is. Tom Peters, renowned management guru, once said, strategic FMing should be music to corporate ears. I'm sure it was Tom Peters. I think it was Tom Peters. I'm sure he would have said it if I hadn't said it first. Music to corporate ears. It's amazing how music can convey a message with a mood, and you can set a mood with just one chord. That's a strategic managing for change mood. And this is the story of a person, an FMer, a simple person, a simple FMer, a person who chooses to lead, who finds a way to be heard by the other executives, by the CEOs and the CFOs, and even the HRs. A lone voice crying out in the wilderness. I call our song the Howling FMer. Join in if you know the words. Now the verse. There were sitting in the boardroom talking about their corporate woes when they heard a sound unusual. Was it friend or foe? Then in walked that person, standing tall in the boardroom glow. It was the howling FMer, getting ready to let one go. Everybody, they looked on in amazement. This FMer seemed deranged, but the FMer kept on howling, strategic managing for change. And then they understood, and they all joined in the growl. And then as one, you could hear them all doing the FMer's howl.
Okay, right. So what was that all about? Yeah, what was that all about? Okay. Yeah, it's not about screaming or whatever, right? Basically, video number 2 was trying to convey to us that FM needs to be at the strategic level. Okay, now this video, okay, right, if you notice, okay, looking at the setting, especially the first video, you can see there was a computer right at the back. It's an old computer, right? This video was actually recreated somewhere in the late 90s, 1990, 1996, 1997, right? And basically, this is actually a video created by an American company called Steelcase. Right, Steelcase is actually a manufacturing company. It's not really a manufacturing company. They do manufacture, but it's not just that. Okay, basically they produce steel furniture. Right, this one of the biggest producers of steel furniture in the world, right? Steelcase, right? That's the name of the company. And this video was created in the late 90s. So at that time, okay, right? At that time in the US, right? Facilities management was seen as a discipline which operates at the operational level, okay, right? So which is why, okay, in the video, right? That guy, that facilities manager, the juggler, right? That's why he was screaming for attention from the top management, so that the top management would realize that they need to have facilities management as part of the strategic team, right? Or the top management, right? So which is why he was howling. He was howling and screaming like a madman, like a lunatic, so that the top management will listen. You need FM, right, to be at the strategic level of management, right? Because time has already changed, right? FM is not just about taking care of maintenance, taking care of, making sure that the toilet papers are, always available, making sure that there are no leaks, making sure that, the air conditioning is in good order. FM is not just about that, right? So he wants the top management to listen, right? We need to strategize our facilities. And in order for us to do that, right, facilities management needs to be part of the top management. They need to be part in the development of the strategic plan of the organization. So in other words, they are strategic players, right? They are strategic players, right? Why? Okay, this scenario was brought up, okay, in the 90s, because at that time, right, businesses around the world started to change, right? They no longer look at facilities as liabilities; they look at facilities as strategic resources, right? And the person who is responsible in managing these facilities, well, he's the facilities manager, right? But how can the facilities manager function, right, or produce, or basically develop, right, strategic facilities plans to facilitate or to enable the core business if the facilities manager is not part of the strategic management team, right? So which is why in this video he growled, right? He asking for the top management to listen, right? So this video was relevant for the US back then in the late 90s. Now, okay, in the US, right, most of the facilities management team, the facilities management service providers, okay, they are involved at the strategic level of the client organization, right? So this is a thing in the past, right? It's a thing of the past in the US, right, for this video. Unfortunately, in Malaysia, this is exactly the kind of problem that we are facing now. Facilities management in Malaysia is only perceived to be functioning at the operational level, right? So far, there haven't been any instances where FM is involved at the strategic level in Malaysia. So we are now facing the same problem that the FMs are facing in the US back in the late 1990s. Okay, right? So yeah, the FMs now are in Malaysia. They are screaming, right, for the top management to acknowledge that they need FM to be at the strategic level. Okay, right? So that's what video number 2 is about, right? Okay, so now let's move on to the last video. Okay.
I recently had a strange, I could say alien experience. I found myself in communication with a very highly placed being. I had a close encounter with a CEO. We were talking about space, not the vastness of outer space, not even Earth with its great outdoors kind of space, which is not so vast, but the management of the workplace space, which is not even half vast, but still incredibly important. And the CEO said to me, how can we make this company work? Well, I sometimes have a hard time finding the words to express how articulate I really am. So I decided to demonstrate the 4 basic elements. Every organization has people going up and down in corporate life. The ones with the most hot air usually rise the fastest. And every organization has technology going faster and faster. This is my latest model, much faster than my old one, which is obsolete. But I knew how to run that one. Every organization has process. My therapist says it's the process that matters. The results will take care of themselves. My golf pro says the same thing. They both keep telling me to keep my head still. The 4th element is often overlooked. Space. Where would you be without it? It's where it all comes together. The coordination of these 4 elements is like juggling for the 21st century. Anti-juggling. With balance and harmony, you get results. The CEO seemed underwhelmed. I said, well, what's your opinion? The CEO said, it's absurd. I said, well, give it to me anyway. The CEO said, I'm dealing with reality, weighty, down-to-earth issues, like flattening management, and then forming teams with flattened managers. Desktop computers have become mess-top computers. And every day there's process du jour. Well, you know how it is. The CEO's immediate goals became my immediate goals. But if you can't find new goals, then you must be challenged. Juggling 3 bowling balls requires a long-term plan. Plan A. You toss the 2 on the side, quickly snatching up the... Plan B. Toss the 1 in the middle, snatching up the 2 on the side. That's a very short-range plan. Plan C. Groveling. Improvised emergency backup plan. It's not much, but somebody might like it. Watch closely, this won't take long. The CEO was naturally impressed, and the vision of the future now included space as a basic element of success. Not only that, I am now referred to by a new title, Team Leader, every Wednesday night.
Right, okay, so that's the last video. Okay. So basically the last video tried to explain that there's something that we tend to overlook, okay, right? Many companies tend to overlook the importance, the criticality of space. Of basically space is facilities, right? Okay, it's part of facilities, okay, right? You see, when a company when they come up with strategic plans, okay, they would think about, how are we going to expand our business? How are we going to strategize the use of our capital? Do we need to expand? Do we need to take in new staff? Things like that. Okay, they will look into those kind of things, right? Okay, so they will look at the first three strategic resources. Okay, now hold on. I need to change back to my earphones. Hold on. Okay. Right. Okay. Right. So they will usually focus on these companies will usually focus on the first 3 strategic resources. Okay, the capital, right, labor, and knowledge and skill. Right, knowledge and skills. Right. Okay. So they will try to come up with a strategic plan for the company's future. Right, based on 1, 2, and 3. They tend to overlook the importance of space or facility or the premise itself, right? Okay. they tend to overlook this part, okay, because for them, right, space or facilities or the premise is basically just a place where the business takes place. That's it, right? So what they want to achieve is, they want to reduce costs, they want to improve their productivity, they want to improve profit, increase their profit, right? How can they utilize, their workers, at the most optimum level, right? How can they utilize, whatever knowledge and skills, right, that the company has, right, so that they can perform better in their business. They forgot to look at this. The importance of space or the facility or the premise itself. Because whatever you do, it happens here, right? So that's what the video is trying to tell us, that the management of space is very important, right? Which is why, okay, space management, okay, becomes one of the most important aspects, right? One of the most important aspects in any organization, right? If you fail to making sure that your space or your facilities perform, then the business, right, doesn't really matter how how much capital you have, how good your workers are, right, whatever knowledge and skills your company has. If the space or the facilities, right, do not perform, then it would give a negative impact towards everything. Right. Okay. So that's what the sales manager tried to explain to the CEO. He said that he had an encounter with the CEO. Right. Okay. So the CEO said that no. I'm dealing with real life problems here every day. Right. And so the FM demonstrated to the CEO how. Right. By utilizing sound facilities management. Right, by managing our facilities and our space, right, we are able to overcome whatever issues that the business, right, is facing, right? So that's what video number 3 is about, okay? Demonstrating the importance of the management of space, right? Because you see, if not, then you will find that operations cost is high, right? You are not having the right facilities. Your company is is not able to perform well due to the facilities that are not performing well, right? Things like that. Okay. UTM, for example, has this problem for many years, and we are still having it now. Right? What we find is that our facilities and our space, particularly in terms of space, right, we are not optimizing the use of our space. Right? If you still remember, I know that you haven't been to the campus for quite a while now, but if you still remember, right, there are so many unutilized space in UTM. Right? Unutilized space, rooms which are not well equipped, rooms which should not be occupied, or rooms which are occupied by a number of students which are not suitable, okay, in terms of its capacity. The class is supposed to accommodate 100 students, for example, but then it is currently being utilized by a class which only has like 25 students or 50 students, right? So you are not utilizing space at the most optimum level. So what? You may ask, okay, so what? Right? You have to remember that every square foot in a business, every square foot is money. You have to think from the business perspective, right? When you put a class with only 30 students inside a lecture room or a lecture hall that can accommodate 100 students, right? Then you are wasting the use of space. You're wasting the use of space, but not to mention, the electricity that you use, right? You turn all the lights on, right? The air conditioning is working, and they are supposed to work, right, for 100 students, not 30, right? We have so many problems, these similar problems happening in UTM. We are not using our space in the most optimum way, right? So when that happens, we are wasting money, right? Cost is rising up, right? So basically, it's just not good. In the business sense, it's not good. So which is why the FM says, let us, right? Let us show you. We need to manage space. Remember, facilities management enables the core business, right? We are not just operational workers, okay? We are a business entity, okay? So let us strategize the use of space, right? So that's what video number 3 was trying to show, okay, right? You at first, for example, even myself, okay, at first, many years ago when I was learning FM, I just couldn't appreciate this, okay, what? Space. So you're not using that space, so what? Right? So every square foot is money. If we don't see it, especially in government buildings, because, well, it's a government building, right? Everything is subsidized, right? But just imagine you own a building. You yourself own a building. Let's say you have a company and you have your own building, and you have all of these space which are not being used in an efficient way. You're wasting space, right? Right. So that's not good. Okay, that's not good. Okay, so that's why video number 3 tries to explain to us that we need to manage space. We need to strategize the use of our space, right? Okay, that's what video number 3 is about. Okay, now this is like what you can see on the slide now. Yes.
May I ask, just now, the 3 things, one is capital, the second is the knowledge skills, and another one is what?
Knowledge and skill, and the second one is labor.
Labor or workers?
Yeah, workforce, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Now, what you can see now in the slide, okay, this is what most people would say, okay, this is the responsibility of FM, okay? M&E assets, right? Okay. Yeah, true, right? But not just this, okay? But definitely in a routine way, right? Every day, okay, these are the things that usually FM would have to manage and maintain, right? Energy supply like gas, electricity, renewable resources, solar, wind, geothermal, biomass, right? Okay. Escalators and lifts, facade engineering, okay, right? Fire safety, detection, protection, making sure that all of the sprinklers, the fire detectors are working, making sure that all the firefighting equipment is working, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning is working well, ICT, all the information technology and communications, working well, lighting, lightning protection, security, water drainage, plumbing, right? Okay. These are the physical stuff, the M&E assets that FM usually will have to take care of, okay? Which is true, right? But not just this, okay? Right? So if you were to look at this slide, okay, right? M&E assets, okay? Which is why, okay, in practice, if you were to look at the industry, right, most of the facilities managers in the private sector, particularly in the private sector, right, most of them come from engineering background. Most of the FMs are either mechanical engineers or electrical engineers, most of them. Even if you, let's say, go and find a job, right? Go and find an advertisement, okay? Vacancy for a facilities manager, right? Okay, you will find that one of the qualifications, right, required for the FM is he has to possess either a degree in mechanical engineering or electrical engineering. Right? It's very, very seldom for you to find, okay, a facilities manager in the private sector which comes from say, property management background or architecture background or even QS, for example, right? It's very seldom. Most of the FMs in the private sectors come from the engineering background. Okay, let's take, for example, GFM Services Berhad, okay, the biggest FM company in Malaysia, right? The founder of GFM, who is also the CEO, right, of GFM, okay, is Mr. Shahrizal, that's his name, right? And he's a mechanical engineer, right? He's a mechanical engineer with a master's degree in facilities management, right? He's our alumni. Okay? But basically, he's an engineer. He's been an engineer for many years before he opened up his own FM company, because he was involved in lots of FM projects before that, and he opened his own FM company. And he becomes an FM. It's the biggest FM company in Malaysia, right? A public listed FM company, the first public listed FM company in Malaysia. Right? He has projects all over the world, particularly in the Middle East, right? What else? Cahaya Johar, for example. Cahaya Johar, Sedia Berhad, right? Okay, is the FM company responsible for managing all of the government buildings in Nusa Jaya, right? And the FM, the facilities manager, who is also now the CEO of Cahaya Johar, right, is Mr. Kamarullah Kasim, and he was before this a mechanical engineer, right? What else? Chulia FM, okay, another big FM company in Malaysia, right? The CEO, right, is also a mechanical engineer, right? So as you can see, the FM profession in the private sector is mostly dominated by mechanical engineers or electrical engineers. Why? Because the perception of people, what does FM do? FM handles maintenance. What maintenance? Building maintenance. Maintenance of what? When you talk about buildings, right? Other than roof maintenance or cleaning and things like that, most of the things that you have to perform, right? Most of the work that you have to perform would be the maintenance of M&E assets, which is why they require mostly mechanical engineers or electrical engineers to be the facilities manager. Unfortunately, these mechanical or electrical engineers are not so good when it comes to the management part. They are good in the technical part, but they are not so good in the management part, right? Because if you still remember in the video, he said a facilities manager must be good in management of facilities, right? Management first of facilities, right? Yeah, okay, so that's the problem. Okay, FMs in the government sector come from a much more diverse background. Okay, right? The FM in UTM, for example, Pujabata Bena, previously he was an architect, who was also the FM for UTM, and unfortunately now he is an engineer now, holding the post of FM in UTM. Right? For banks, right? For banks, mostly the FMs would come from from accountants, right? From the accounting background. Okay, the FMs in banks are not really FM; they are more on asset management. Okay, but they call themselves FMs, right? Okay? So you need to understand that. Okay. Because FM is, of course, highly technical previously, but now they have really evolved into a much more business-oriented discipline. But people still perceive FM as a highly technical discipline, which is why most of the FM positions held in the private sectors, okay, are those from the mechanical and electrical background, right? Okay. Now, let's look at the core competencies required by a facilities manager. If you want to become a facilities manager, these are the competencies that you need, right? So firstly, you need to be good at business and organization strategy. That's number one. You must understand business and organization strategy. Right? Remember, FM is an enabler to the core business. So you must understand how business is conducted, how business is managed, how do we strategize our business? How do we strategize our organization? Right? So FM must understand business and organization strategy. Right? Okay. Yeah. If FM were to focus on mostly on the technical part, then he's not going to be a very good FM. Remember, FM needs to serve, okay, an organization, making sure that the facilities can facilitate the core business. So in order for the facilities to facilitate the core business, the FM firstly need to understand what the business is all about, how the business is conducted, understand the nature of the business, right? Only then can you strategize the facility so that it can support or facilitate the core business. Okay, so business and organization strategy is one. Okay, and I could say that it is the most important aspect. Okay, the most critical competencies required by a facilities manager. Okay, and secondly, okay, facility strategy, right? A facilities manager needs to have a good understanding on how to come up with a good facility strategy, right? Okay, good facility strategy planning, right? Okay, good facility strategy management. Okay, so come up with a good strategy so that it can facilitate the core business. Again, right? It relates to the business. So understand the business first, understand the requirement, how the business is carried out, the nature of the business, so that we can come up with a good facility strategy, right? Again, if FM is seen as a technical discipline, then the FM is not going to be a very good FM. Yeah, I just had a discussion with our faculty yesterday, right? The postgraduate office, okay, of our faculty wanted to change the code. Okay, every course in UTM, right, would have a code, what we call as the NEC code, right, the National Education Code, awarded by MQA, the Malaysian Qualification Association, right? Okay. So for our postgraduate program, for the Asset and Facilities Management program, the master's program, I mean, right? Okay, the code previously has always been 346, which is awarded to a program which can be categorized as a business and management program. So all this while, our Masters of Asset and Facilities Management program has been categorized as a business management program. Okay, so hence the 346 code. But then, okay, the PG office, our postgraduate office, okay, suggested that we change that. Okay, change the program code to I can't remember, is it 4410 or 4401, which is a category for technical programs. So technical programs, right? Built environment, survey, and something. Okay, it's more technical, right? So they want to categorize the FM program as a technical program, right? So of course I argued with them, saying that if we were to categorize our master's program as a technical program, right, then believe me, nobody is going to come and take on our master's program in FM, right? Okay, nobody. Okay, we are going to have a problem there. Okay, because you need to understand the need, okay, towards FM. FM is a business discipline. Okay. So I argued with the PG office yesterday, right? Of course, they don't understand what is FM, so I had to explain to them and all. And yeah, so we rejected the suggestion. So our FM program in UTM still stands as a business management program, okay, even though it sits under the Faculty of Built Environment and Survey, right? So it's very important for us to understand that, okay? FM is a business program. Okay, and the third one is risk management. Okay, this is also very important, right? There are risks in business, right? There are risks in business, And the risk comes in many forms. Okay? So the FM needs to be able to identify these risks. Okay, there are risks in the form of natural disasters, risks in the form of political instability, economic downturn, or geographical influences or geographical impacts, right? For example, let's say if you open an office or a factory, for example, in an area which is, notorious or infamous, for being an area that suffers lots of blackouts, right? So there is a risk that you have to take. There's a risk that you have to manage, not just take, but manage. Okay, a similar situation happened in the UK. If you've heard of a very famous departmental store in the UK, in London, it's called Harrods, right? Now, Harrods sits in a location in London, which often experience blackouts, right? So Harrods is not going to, face that problem. When there are frequent blackouts, then business wouldn't be able to, be operated in a smooth way. So what Harrods did was the FM of Harrods did was to manage the problem, right? They built their own electric generator, right, underground. Okay, so even though the other shops are all inoperational due to blackouts, Harrods can still operate as usual. Okay, right. So that's how they manage the risk. Okay, that is a very straightforward way. Okay. So the thing is, you need to identify the risk. You need to acknowledge, not just identify, but also acknowledge. Okay, because risk can come in many forms, and sometimes they come in a form which is illogical to the mind. Okay, there's one problem that many companies are facing, particularly those in the accommodation service. Okay, hotels, hotel apartments, and even sometimes shopping complexes. Okay, they do have this one particular problem that they are facing, causing them to shut down. Right? It's not the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, this risk or this problem has been occurring for many years now. Okay, forever actually. Okay, which is the problem of what we call as haunted facilities. Haunted facilities. As the name suggests, right? You're talking about ghosts. Well, it's not about whether you believe or not in ghosts, right? Okay, it's really up to you whether you believe or don't believe in ghosts, right? But just imagine, okay, let's say you are managing a hotel which has the reputation of being haunted. Would people come to your hotel if your hotel has the reputation of being a haunted hotel? Would people come? No. Right? And your business will go down the drain once you have that reputation. But this is a very real life problem. There are many hotels that have already shut down due to this issue. In Port Dickson, for example, there are countless hotels that have shut down because they have the reputation of being haunted hotels. One of the most famous one would be Mayang Sari, the Mayang Sari Hotel in Port Dickson. Said to be haunted, severely haunted, by the way, right? I know, some kind of Diana, vampire, something like that. Yeah, it may sound nonsense to you, but it is a very real problem for the hotel management. What I mean is, it's not about the ghost. Okay, again, it's not about whether you believe or not in ghosts, right? But once you have the reputation of being a haunted hotel, then that's it. People wouldn't come, right? Okay, so there is a problem. In the real estate, for example, you cannot sell. Sometimes you cannot sell houses because it has a reputation of being a haunted house. You cannot sell it, even when you sell it at a cheap price. When you sell a house, for a very cheap price, and people will start to question, why is it so cheap? Right? Why is it so cheap? It's in the town area, right? So why is it so cheap? Something must be wrong with the house. And the first thing that people would think about is it a haunted house? And that is a very real problem that real estate agents, property managers face. Right? Unfortunately, we do not discuss this. We do not acknowledge this. Right? Okay, we do not acknowledge this, but it is actually a real problem. The real problem is the reputation of being haunted, not whether it is truly haunted or not. Right? Okay, that one I will leave it to you. Okay, right? Whether you believe it or don't believe it. But okay, the reputation is even worse than the haunting itself. The reputation of being haunted is much worse than the haunting itself. There's one instance where a facilities management company did acknowledge this issue, right? The FM company, which is managing Paradigm Mall in JB, in Johor Bahru. Right? For those who are not familiar, of course you are not familiar, right? Because you were born much later, okay? Paradigm Mall was originally called Kemayan City, right? It was built. The construction began in 1990, I think it was 1995 or 1996, right? Okay. Supposedly, it was supposed to be the biggest shopping complex in Johor at that time. So Kemayan City was developed by Kemayan Holdings. Okay, unfortunately, in 1997, okay, the economy went down the drain, right? And Kemayan City, I think they suffered quite lots of losses, and I think they went bankrupt, I believe. So Kemayan Holdings went bankrupt, and the Kemayan City shopping complex was not finished yet at that time. I think it was somewhere around 60% complete, right? And it was just abandoned like that. So it became an abandoned project, right? And it remained abandoned for more than 20 years. And during that time, during that 20 years, right, okay, Kemayan City developed the reputation of being a haunted building. Okay, there are so many stories. Okay, you can Google it. Okay, right? There are so many stories about the hauntings in Kemayan City, the abandoned, incomplete building, right, shopping complex. Then a new developer took over, right? A new developer took over, and when of course the new developer appointed an FM company as well to manage the building afterwards. Okay, and they acknowledge, right, the issue in hand, which is after completion, after we've opened this new shopping complex, we may face a problem. We may face a problem where people may not come to the shopping complex because, well, the JB, the Johorians and the Singaporeans, we are very familiar, about the so-called hauntings of Kemayan City. So to deal with that problem, the FM company took, a rather, for me, it's a very clever solution. Okay, they created this image. Okay, this image where Paradigm Mall is seen as a very bright and welcoming shopping complex. Bright and welcoming. So for those who have been to Paradigm Mall, right? Okay, I think you can agree that it is very bright. Yeah? It is very colorful, right? With all the signboards on the exterior of the building, right? There are no other shopping complex like that. Okay, where you commit one large portion of the building exterior just for signboards, right? Okay, and it is very well lit. Okay, at night it is very bright. Even 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, it's very bright outside and inside the building. Okay, once I went there, watching a midnight show, cinema, right? And it is still very bright inside, even at 2 a.m. in the morning. Okay? And then when I had to go to the toilet, even the toilet was very brightly lit, right? It was very bright. So by doing that, when people look at the shopping complex, they would say, or they would feel, okay, I do understand that this building has a reputation of being a haunted building, but it looks fine to me, right? It looks very welcoming. It was very bright. I feel safe here. I don't feel afraid. And people are coming to Paradigm Mall, right? People are coming to Paradigm Mall. And Paradigm Mall is doing very well, right? So the FM company, because I talked to the facility manager for Paradigm Mall, and he told me that was the strategy that they took, right? Okay, making the shopping complex very bright and welcoming, so that people won't feel afraid to go there, right? Even though it is said that the hauntings still do occur, right? People say, sometimes people see entities at the ice skating rink. Workers, sometimes report that, before closing down at night, they would, of course, they will tidy up the shop, clean up everything, and the next morning when they come, everything is a mess, right? Hauntings at the parking lot, especially the top one. Yeah, they say the hauntings still happen, whether you believe in things like that, right? But it does not deter people from still going to Paradigm Mall, right? Because it looks so bright and welcoming. So clever, very clever approach from the FM, right, of Paradigm Mall. Okay? So they acknowledge the risk and take actions, rather than, come on, don't be ridiculous, right? Hauntings, right? Don't be ridiculous, and you do nothing about it, and well, your business will suffer afterwards. Okay, right? So risk management is important, right? It's important. Whatever the risk is, acknowledge it, right? We need to acknowledge the risk, okay, before coming up with a plan on how to manage the risk. Okay, right. Now the next one will be organizational behavior and structure, right? That will be the next one. Okay, FM must be very familiar, right, with organizational behavior and structure, right? This one, okay, which is FM basically serves a company, serves an organization, and sometimes if let's say it's an FM consultant, for example, right, an FM consultant, right, you may have more than one client at one time. Organization A, organization B, organization C, organization D, right? And each of these organizations, right, may have different behaviors and different structure. What do I mean by behavior? What do I mean by organizational behavior? Right? Every company would have their own way of doing things, right? Their own culture, their own behavior, right? I think the most apparent one would be if you to compare between a government organization and a private one. Private companies and government agencies, right? Different culture, different behavior, different structure. What I mean by different structure is in the government sector, right? Government agencies would have more positions, right? They have more positions compared to in the private sector. So the structure is different. Okay, that's one. And then the behavior or the culture is different, right? The government sector tends to be a bit more relaxed, slower, right? There's no urgency, right? Okay? Everything is, yeah. Well, government sectors, right? Okay? They tend to be a bit uh, slow in everything, okay, compared to private ones, right? For me, even myself, based on my experience, I find it to be quite shocking. Okay, I suffered some form of culture shock. Okay, when I moved to UTM. Okay, because previously, I came from the industry, right? In the private sector, right? I worked with an architecture firm for many years, and when I first became a lecturer, even right, I became a lecturer at Lim Kok Wai University, which was also a private university. So I came from the private sector. Everything needs to be fast, with quality, right? There's always a certain level of urgency, right? You need to always be at 110%. But when I moved to UTM, I decided to move to UTM, then suddenly I find that, oh, goodness me, I have so much time in my hand. I have so much time. Well, I have life. I have life compared to before. I don't have life, or I didn't have life, and then suddenly I have life. I can, have time to have a coffee break. I have time to chat around, and everything is slow. If I were to ask for something from the department or from the office, let's say a letter, for example, right, for my student to collect data, ask for the letter from the office, then I would expect that the letter will be available in the next 3 months. Yeah, something like that, right? Whereby if you're in the private sector, if you ask for a letter, then you can definitely be confident that you will get the letter in perhaps in an hour or two, or even less than that, right? So there is difference in terms of behavior, the way people perform their work, right? Okay, so FMs need to understand organizational behavior, right? Because the way we see, remember, FM needs to create the most conducive work environment, and the most conducive work environment depends on what kind of environment the organization needs. Right, which is why, like when I give you the example of Toyota, I think I did give you the example of Toyota, where Toyota Japan had this layout, this kind of layout for their office, right? The boss in front and the workers like that, like in the classroom, with no cubicles and no coverings whatsoever. The boss can see, right? 120 degrees, right? He can see everything, right? From 8 to 5, right? You can see everything, no cubicles or whatever. This is in Toyota Japan. And when Toyota Malaysia adopted this kind of layout, Toyota Malaysia, right? They basically adopted the same layout. Then something bad happened in Toyota Japan. When they used this kind of layout, the productivity of the workers went up. But when Toyota Malaysia adopted this layout, productivity went down. Because the culture is different, the behavior is different. In Malaysia, right, our workers, right, need to have space, our own private space. At least give us a cubicle, some form of partition, so that we have our own private space. We need that, right? And we always need time to chat a bit, look at our phones, open up look at Facebook or Twitter or whatever, right? Perhaps take like a 5 or 10 minute Candy Crush break or something like that, right? Okay. We can never really focus in doing our work for more than 1 or 2 hours a time, right? 1 hour, 2 hours the most, and that's it. After that, we need a break. Okay? In Japan, no. They are very disciplined. They are very focused. They can remain focused for 8 hours a day. And that is their culture. That is how the organizations in Japan behave. But in Malaysia, it's different, right? Which is why it's a major failure when Toyota Malaysia adopted that kind of layout for their office, right? So FM needs to understand organizational behavior and structure. Okay? Very important, right? Right. And the next one will be people management. Of course, FM does not manage people in the same sense as the HR, right? The human resource management manage people, okay? Right? FM does not manage people. But what is meant by people management here is how do you deal, okay, with people as a facilities manager? So there are a certain group of people that FM needs to deal with, right? Your client, organization, right? The users, the service providers, right? Okay, right? So there are three. How do we manage our client? How do we manage the end users, right? The employees of our client? And how do we deal, or how do we manage our service providers, right? Our maintenance contractors or our cleaners, for example, right? There must be a way, some form of approach to managing these people. When you deal with your client, of course, what you want to make sure that your client is satisfied, right? So when you managing your client basically means, right, you have to make sure that everything you do, right, fulfills the requirement of your client, right? Okay. Managing the users will be different, right? Managing the users is firstly you need to understand how they work, what is their culture, their behavior, what do they need, right? Okay, in the work environment. Okay, service providers will be how do you manage them? How do you manage their performance? How do you manage your relationship with your service providers? Right? Oh yeah, I missed one more. Your team, right? The FM team, right? Or your colleagues, right? How do you manage your team, right? How do you manage your colleagues, your workers, your employees, right? The FM company, I mean, right? Okay, manage them so that they can become more productive, right? A simple, for example, tap on the shoulder, good job, right? Oh, good job, right? A simple tap would motivate the worker, someone, right? Okay, to be happy and become more productive. Just a simple tap. Good job, right? Okay, people management is very important. Okay, not everyone has the skill to manage people, right? You see, giving just a smile, for example, a boss giving a smile, right, to the employees. How are you today? Right? How's your kid? How are your kids doing? Right? Okay. Smile. Right? There's no capital involved. Right? It doesn't cost you money to smile. But when you smile to your workers, give some form of compliment, right? Good job, right? It will make their day, right? And they will perform well. Goodness me, they might even smile in their sleep, right? Okay. So managing people is very important, right? You must understand that people needs to feel appreciated, right? People need to feel appreciated, right? Okay. Now, if you realize in our class, right? Every time when I end the class, what would I say? Whenever I want to end the class, what would I say? I would say, thank you for attending our class, right? I always say that before I end the class. So thank you for coming. Thank you for attending our session today to show that I appreciate your effort attending my class and to learn from me. And I am the lecturer here, right? Conventionally, you are the one who should feel you know, you should feel that, you know, we appreciate your effort for teaching us and everything. But nah, for me, I appreciate your effort attending the class and learning from me, right? Even though I do know that some of you just log in and move away. How do I know that? Because at the end of the class, after most of you have already logged out, and I can still see some of you remain, okay, in the meeting, meaning you are not in front of the computer. Well, yeah, fine, it's okay, no problem, right? Okay, I still appreciate at least you logged in, right? I appreciate at least that effort, at least, right? So in a sense, right, I'm using some form of people management when I say thank you for attending our class today, for example, right? To show appreciation, right? Whether you realize it or not, okay, right? But just to show appreciation, okay, right? So people management is very important. As a manager, you are the leader, right? You need to have the skill to manage the people, right? That you are dealing with, okay, right? So that's people management, and the next one will be communication. As a manager, you need to have communication skills, right? When I say communication skills, right, we can divide it into two, right? Let me just erase the other writings. Okay, communication, right? Basically, you're talking about three then, okay? Your verbal skill, right? Language and communication channel, right? Okay. Of course, you must be familiar with, firstly, I will start with communication channel, okay? Right? You need to familiarize, okay, which communication channel is suitable. When do you need to use email? When do you need to use WhatsApp messaging? When do you need to call? When do you need to have a face-to-face communication? When do you need to use a letter, right? You must know when to use these different communication channels because they would convey a much different weight, you know, to the subject in hand. For example, let's say you are giving some form of a criticism, right? A comment, or about somebody, okay, a worker, right? Now, if you just, for example, tell him, right, through WhatsApp messaging, right? Okay, for example, let's say you need to improve, you know, the report by doing this, for example, right? That is considered to be light. You give a phone call, it's a bit more serious than that. It's no longer light. It's a bit more serious, right? You send an email, right? It's even more serious. You send a letter, right? That is even worse, right? A letter becomes a record, right? So it's even worse, right? Much more serious. When you call him face to face for a discussion, that is a totally different level. So you must understand the communication channel, which one you need to use, right? That's one. Secondly, of course, your verbal skill. A manager, come on, you're a manager. You need to have verbal skills, which is why we always encourage you, okay, students, right? Okay, you need to talk, right? Don't be afraid. I know that there are many students who are very good. You perform very well in your exam, right? You get very high marks, right? Very high grades. Your CPA is outstanding, right? 4.0, you get all these, you get the Dean's Award and everything, but you cannot speak. You don't have the confidence to speak. And people like this would usually, right, will not succeed in their career. You will just become somebody who sits down in the office and do your work quietly, right? Those who have, you know, very good, exceptional verbal skill, these are the people who usually go up, right? They get promoted even earlier compared to those who are just quiet, in the office. And sometimes these people who has exceptional verbal skills, they are not really that smart. They may not perform well in their studies. They may not get 4 flats or 3.7s, or the Dean's Award and things like that. But they may just be an average student, but because he has the skill, verbal skill, right, communication skill, so he is more pronounced, right, in the office. So it's easier for him to go up compared to those who are very quiet. So which is why you need to develop your verbal skill, your communication skill, right? And that comes also in line with your language, particularly English. You need to have a good command of English, right? It's very important, right? Especially if you're going to work in the private sector. Unfortunately, in the private sector, we use the English language most of the time, right? If you go to the government sector, then that's a different story, right? Okay, in the government sector, we still use Bahasa, right? But in the private sector, most of the private sectors, right, they would use the English language. It doesn't mean that you have to speak English with 100% accurate, correct grammar, right? No, nobody can do that. Okay? Not even the native English speakers themselves, right? They can't even speak with 100% accurate grammar, right? But at least you must have a good command of English, and you're confident speaking in English. Plus, you need to have verbal skills. That is very important. But otherwise, it's very difficult for you to climb up the stairs, climb up the ranks, right? When you go out and work. Okay. Speaking for example, from my experience, okay, I had let me just share a story with you. Well, my first day of work, right? My first day of work after finishing my diploma, right? I worked for a company called HAJ Architects, Haj Architects in Johor Bahru, and when I reported for duty, my very first day, right? My boss was not there. The boss was not there. Mr. Hamdan was not there. The boss, but he already told me, right, that during the interview that I'm going to need to manage a project called the Bandar Baru Air Hitam New Township. Okay, Air Hitam New Township, which is in Johor, right? It's a government project, right? It's a government project from the state government. Okay, and the Haj Architects is supposed to be part of a consortium, okay, to become the developer of the project. Okay, so that's my responsibility. I will need to handle that project. So he told me that during the interview, right? So when I reported for duty, right, Mr. Hamdan was not there, but his secretary told me that Mr. Hamdan is not here today. Please take this report, everything. Please read it, because at 2 o'clock after lunchtime, you are going to have to attend a meeting. The Tenaga Professional Johor Board of Directors meeting. You have to attend that meeting, and you're required to present our early stage of planning and design for the new Air Hitam project. And I was like 21 years old at that time with no work experience whatsoever, right? And when I went to the meeting, all of the 10 companies' board of directors were there, except for Mr. Hamdan. And the best part was I was the one who had to speak, because the planning part, right, is supposed to be presented by Haj Architects. So I had to speak. I have to present in front of them and discuss with them. I was a 21-year-old boy, not a man yet. 21-year-old boy with no experience. Right? And there were Datuks there. There were Tan Sris there even. Right? So just imagine how I faced that kind of situation. Right? Unfortunately, I had the verbal skills required. Right? Okay. Even though I was very nervous, but I have the verbal skills to face that kind of situation. because I've always took part in debates and public speaking, competitions, pidato, and those kind of things when I was in school. Right? I was very active in those kind of activities. So I have the verbal skill to face that kind of situation. I handle it, I think, it's quite well. And only then, after that, did I discover that Mr. Hamdan was actually giving me some form of a test. He wanted to test me whether I was able to handle that kind of situation. And he was very happy, right? And he tested me again 2 years later in the year 1999, right? At that time, Project Bandar Baru Air Hitam was almost complete. We already, I think it's more like 90% complete. And at that time, there was an exhibition, by all the companies, the Johor companies, right? Anak Johor companies. We had to open up a booth at Eden Hotel in Stulang, right? And Tun Mahathir, at that time, he was not Tun yet, and he was Tun Datuk Sri Dr. Mahathir with his wife, Dr. Sri Siti Hasma. He was still the Prime Minister back then, in 1999. So he was supposed to come and visit every booth, and each of the booth owner will have to present in front of him. And again, Mr. Hamdan tested me, right? Okay, he tested me. He said to me, okay, Izran, I want you to present. I was 23 years old at that time. Yeah, I've gained quite a lot of experience by that time, already working for 2 years, right? But then presenting in front of Datuk Sri Dr. Mahathir was totally a different story. Now, prior to that, during the undertaking of the Bandar Baru Air Hitam project, I had lots of meeting with Datuk Ghani Osman, who was the Menteri Besar of Johor at that time, right? We had lots of meetings with him, and I even went to his house at night, at Bukit Saujana, because he had an accident, he broke his ankle while playing badminton. So when he wanted to know the progress of the project, he would call me, and I had to go to his office. To his house at night. So yeah, but that was just the Menteri Besar, which is not so bad. But now I had to present in front of Tun Mahathir, or Datuk Sri Mahathir at that time, right? The Prime Minister of Malaysia. It was a different story, right? And I still remember, right? The situation was, right? This was the table. Okay? If this was a table, right? I stood here with all of the exhibition materials, and he stood here, and we had a model here, right, of the new Air Hitam township, right? And Dr. Mahathir was standing here, and his wife. And I had about 3 minutes to present in front of him, in English, of course, right? And he was very serious. He looked at me, he looked at the model with a very serious look. And seriously, I'm telling you, right, I was very fortunate because the table was here, so that he couldn't see that my legs were shaking like crazy. But above the table, then it looks fine, very confident, well, very composed, right? But here, below the table, right, I was shaking, really. And presenting in front of Datuk Sri Dr. Mahathir, come on. And after I finished my my presentation, he commented on the project, right? He asked me questions as if he was a town planner. He was that knowledgeable, right? But it was a good experience. Okay, I think I owe a lot to Mr. Hamdan because he gave me lots of opportunities, right? And I learned a lot when I was working for him. Okay, so yeah, I wouldn't be able to handle that situation if I did not have the communication skill, right? So again, I cannot stress how important for you to have communication skills, right? Good communication skills. And as a facility manager, definitely as a manager,